Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first Town Hall Tuesday of 2018. I'm glad to see most of the chairs filled and everybody coming out to join us tonight. For the upcoming year, we are making a few adjustments to how we do the Town Hall Tuesdays, but at the very least, we are still anxious to present information to our citizens and gain feedback from you on the things that we are doing to meet the objectives of the City Council. Before I get into my portion, I'd like to ask Mayor Stan Pickett to come forward to say a few words.
Thank you. Good evening. It's always good to see everybody here tonight. I see a lot of familiar faces and, as usual, a few new faces. We appreciate it very much. You know, we had a meeting a few weeks ago, and you'll hear more about that, and that's kind of why we're here tonight, that talked about neighborhood revitalization, and talked to a few of you folks tonight as I've coming in and talking about, well, you know, what are we going to do? What's it going to look like? Well, we're going to let Yolanda tell us all about that tonight. And, you know, my commitment is, and our whole council's commitment is, we're going to work harder at it. We really are. We've done a number of efforts over the last 10 years in Mesquite in a few different ways, but I don't think we've ever put the energies and the resources behind really trying to bring our older neighborhoods up as we're going to see here in the next year to 18 months to 2 years. And it's I said it a few weeks ago at the Chamber of Commerce banquet, it's going to take all of us. The council, just by themselves, we don't have the manpower and the energy by ourselves to do it. City staff, you know, really can't revitalize your neighborhoods, but you can, and we can, to collectively, and being able to get out and meet and talk, and, you know, that ugly word about, you mean you want me to talk to the guy that lives next door? Oh, I don't like her, you know, that lady, no, don't let me talk to her, you know, but it really does make a difference, and I think we talk about waving and saying hello, but that's Texas. I was at getting pizza of all things for my kids in Richardson last week, actually. It all runs together. And a young man, his daughter, little girl, about 4, she's waving at me. And he looks at me, and I'm waving back and saying, "Hi, honey." He goes, "We're from California. If you do that in California, they think you're weird." But he said, here in Texas, we're teaching my kids to wave and say hello to everybody. So I thought that was great. Normally we have these things, and I have a chance at the end, and you'll hear from other council members, I'm sure, at the end tonight. I've had 3 other invitations of places that I need to go to tonight. And so I know you're in good hands. I know the city manager and our other council members have a lot of good things to say. Name and address, address, emails, phone numbers are all on the website. I encourage any of you to reach out to us. Myself is included. We're happy to work with you. So with that, I think Mr. Kahili will turn it back over, and thank you guys, and we look forward to working with you some more in the future.
Thank you, Mayor. And before we get too far along, just a couple of reminders. We are videoing tonight's meeting, so when there's an opportunity to speak, we'll make sure that you have a microphone. And so just raise your hand and we'll get the microphone to you, but please speak into the microphone so whoever is watching tonight or here in the future can hear your question. We do ask that you try to keep your questions related to the topic at hand tonight, which is neighborhood vitality. If you have a specific issue that's going on in your neighborhood that's vital, that you need to answer tonight, I have a good group of staff members here who can take those concerns. But if you can keep us on topic tonight and really focus on the how of neighborhood vitality. And then again, if you just want to talk to staff members and find out what's going on in each of our departments, we have neighborhood services here, we have police department, we have, let's see who else here, and the city manager's office for sure. So we're glad to stick around and talk. We really enjoy talking to the citizens and really finding out what's going on, what you're experiencing, so we can do our job better. And speaking of doing our job better, neighborhood vitality. We have all seen our neighborhoods age, and we have seen portions of our city fall into a little bit of decline. And as the mayor said, it is not something that city staff or code enforcement or police can do alone. It is a group effort, it is a team effort, and we are taking the efforts now to really work with neighborhoods. And that's what neighborhood vitality is about, is reaching out to neighborhoods, finding the solutions, finding ways that citizens can empower themselves to solve problems. And tonight you're going to hear from our Neighborhood Vitality Manager, Yolanda Wilson. And before she comes up here, I want to make sure that everybody understands what neighborhood vitality means when it comes to the person that we've put into place. Yolanda is not your key contact for getting trash picked up in your neighbor's yard. We have not hired one person to handle those complaints. Later on, I'll share with you the methods in which we would like for you to communicate that to the city, but it's not Yolanda. Yolanda is a facilitator. She is here to train, educate, and provide resources to neighborhoods that really want to work towards making their neighborhoods better. She is here to find solutions. If you encounter a problem in your neighborhood and you don't know what to do, but you want to do something, you want to reach out, you want to take an active role, Yolanda is your resource. She will facilitate working with other departments to find out what the need, what the problem is, and what the solution is. If it's an intersection that you have a concern with a crosswalk, she will work with you to find the resource within the city to find that solution. If there's a house in your neighborhood that has a hoarder, and we were just talking about that. I'm not pointing to a hoarder. I did not point to her. I saw. So we had just talked about sharing our experiences with people in our neighborhoods. So deeply apologize for that. So, but you know, those are unique problems. Those we can send a code enforcement out there every other week to try to solve a problem with a hoarder. But the neighbors can group together and help as well. And that's where Yolanda will come up with resources and methods in which neighbors can help neighbors with their issues. And really, at the bottom line is Yolanda is here to make you successful. If you are truly interested in improving your neighborhood, Yolanda is going to train you. She will provide the resources, and she will push, pull, whatever it takes to help you gather a neighborhood group together and find success to make your neighborhood better. So again, thank you for being here. We'll come back up and answer questions in a little bit, but now I'd like to introduce Yolanda Wilson, our Neighborhood Vitality Manager.
Thank you, Cliff. Thank you for attending to tonight's Town Hall Tuesday. Again, my name is Yolanda Wilson, and I'm the Manager of Neighborhood Vitality with the City of Mesquite. I'm very excited to be here. I have many, many years of experience of working with neighborhoods, and it kind of happened in an indirect way. My first local government job was with the City of Missouri City. And one thing I noticed in the city manager's office, he would constantly have walk-ins and telephone calls that could have been handled by a resident. It was not really anything that was appropriate enough for a city manager to have to take out the time to address. So I started listing those questions, and they became redundant. So I created a frequently asked questions, and also invited the residents to meet with us, at community centers or leisure centers throughout the city. And actually, the ones that weren't a part of a homeless association, I was acclimating them to how they could take advantages of resources that were right in their neighborhoods, whether it be a local church or nonprofit. One example of that is that I worked with the Fifth Street Estates, and they had 3 different languages within 2 to 3 square mile radius in a neighborhood. So they had language barriers and things that they probably didn't commonly share as far as their value systems. But what I did was I created a speakers bureau that spoke their primary language so they could connect with one another and create a problem-solving machine, really. And it's day and night now in that corridor, the things that they've been able to accomplish. So first of all, I would like to take you through a theoretical or historical perspective, because I know I've gotten phone calls and residents, they've approached me and said, Yolanda, what is vitality? They want to know. So during my undergraduate studies, I actually read a lot of Robert Audrey's books, and one was entitled The Social Contract. And there's a quote in a poem that exists. It's entitled Tusculus in Paradise. And it says, a society is a group of unequal beings organized to meet a common need. And that's true. We all need food, shelter, and clothing, but we might address getting those needs or accessing them in different ways due to our different socioeconomic backgrounds. So he actually went out and stayed and lived in the jungles of Africa, and he would document how species and animals and mammals, they would fight and disagree, but then they would come together and create some type of relationship again. Most humans, what we do is when we disagree, we take it a little bit more personally. We hold grudges. We don't want to admit it. And so people who create things in their neighborhoods, if someone comes in and tries to tell you a new idea, a better way of doing stuff, we tend to take it personally. And those are the types of things he would talk about. And also in his book entitled Thunder Rock, he said a human being is a problem in search of a solution. And so these are the types of things that we actually have experienced in local government. So some of the objectives tonight that I'll go over with you is, what is neighborhood vitality, its mission, levels of engagement, and how to get involved. And I guess some of you are probably wondering, why is she going over this with me? Because when people ask about vitality, once you become a part of it, you can understand and share it with your neighbors. It's more than just something that sounds entertaining or fun. A lot of people view this profession as fun, but it's really not. You spend a lot of hours and time trying to connect people with appropriate resources. And it has to be somebody that really has a passion for it. So when you use what is vitality in the Webster Dictionary, or most people would define it as the energy, the source of something. And the type of vitality that I'm speaking of is the life or existence of your neighborhood. Ask yourself the question, what do you see? What do you hear? How does it make you feel? And a lot of people laugh. They say, why do you ask that? Because I want to know that from residents. And there are two measurable items that I've posted on the web page that I have made available to crime watch groups and the neighborhood leads. And I'm going to go over that with you tonight. But those things are so important. The mission of Neighborhood Vitality is providing a platform, whether it be training, advocating for some type of funding, presenting data that I collect from you all to any corporate sponsors or anything that's available that I feel it could connect a problem to a solution. So to cultivate local stakeholders, which is you, to improve the quality of life, that's what we all have in common. We're always concerned about the health and safety. And also in their neighborhoods, but that's our neighborhoods, what we care for, what we invest in, with the goal of advancing the long-term vitality of the community. A lot of people say, why does it take this much to say it? Because to not just create a fix or something that's easy, you always want to think about, if I go and fix this house, what is the problem? So I've always had a keen gift for this, and I was always kind of, not wanting to admit it, but I don't like to just fix things in neighborhoods, because I like to look at the internal issue. What is causing it? If we fix it, how are we going to maintain it? So this takes some levels of engagement. So what I'm going to go over with you tonight is 4 levels of engagement. And these are the types of things where the Office of Neighborhood Vitality can connect with the neighborhoods and to learn and to teach one another through a relationship and to begin to be universal. When people drive through Mesquite, they should say, oh, this is a Mesquite neighborhood. It's something that you should share. Every neighborhood is different, it's unique, it has its own qualities, but still in all, when you really talk to the residents, they can tell you different things that made it a neighborhood at one time, different things that tend to be deteriorating, but really it's not. It has a lot to do with internal things, your attitude, your outlook on how you can address issues. So the first level of engagement that I'll go over When I started my certifications through the NeighborWorks Institute, what they do is they toss out different types of theoretical issues. This one comes from like almost like a criminal justice type theory. So it says, tell people what happened. Most people think of like, oh, a crime has happened, what happened? But I'm trying to get you to engage, to say what happened historically in my community. If you have been living in your neighborhood 10, 20, 30 years, raise your hand if you've been, I guess, living in your neighborhood for under 10 years. Yeah, under 10 years. 20? 30 plus? So people who are in the room that's probably 20 plus years, you've probably seen some changes as far as mobility, more people moving into, people who probably didn't look like you, they talk differently than you, but it has no direct correlation. But it begins to make you feel uncomfortable. But you should ask yourself why and address those issues. From a historical perspective, you can't always repeat history, but some good qualities that you shared, you could introduce that and set a standard in your neighborhood. A good example is that millennials, when they move into a neighborhood, they look for certain, attributes, like probably a school that's nearby or a park. But sometimes when they don't have that, it's because they notice how pleasant or how inviting the people who live there are. And they're like, well, I'm starting a family, I have children. And they sense that connection. So it's not always the appearance that people take for granted. Sometimes people look for the internal. So you have to really ask yourself the question, what makes your neighborhood a neighborhood? And there's a lot of qualities that people look for in a neighborhood. So that's level one, to just begin to connect, to know what exists internally, but offering and receiving feedback. Now, how many people I have in the room that are, I guess you are a lead of a crime watch group or neighborhood? And I'm pretty sure you could say that, hey, I've created certain programs and they work and I like it this way. But for whatever reason, when you create an idea, how receptive are you to new ideas and giving it a try to see if it'll work? A lot of people say, well, no, because it's not broken, it's working, but it's your brand. It's like if you are closed and you don't appear to want to receive ideas, it might be that's the reason why you're not getting new volunteers or people who could really help for that very reason. I mean, I've known throughout my 18 years, I've had people, they've sent out flyers, they made it seem so fun what they were gonna do at their block parties, and they might have sent out like 250 invitations, but only 10 people show up. But when you assess their attitudes and they're saying, well, this is my way or no way, you get that lower participation. And even when you're open, it could be difficult. So receiving negative information is just as important as receiving positive, because not everybody that lives in your neighborhood, they're gonna agree with you. So the Office of Neighborhood Vitality will begin to give you tools that you could utilize, just strategies, things that you don't think about, that where you could tap into that human behavior. So level 3, this is the most critical. Who lives in your neighborhood? I worked with a gentleman in Louisville. He's probably one of the best neighborhood leaders we recruited. Mr. Derrick had lived next door to a gentleman 2 houses away for 25 years. He didn't know his name. He had no idea. Their children had attended high school together. They would just leave the house, never wave. They ended up serving on a neighborhood committee together, and now they're like almost 250 people deep. They had car burglaries going on in their neighborhood, all types of activity, but they never were outside. They never made themselves visible. Officer Ron Hill addressed that in some things that they offer, but that's also an engagement issue. The block leader plans that I'm going to talk about tonight is where why take on the entire responsibility of your neighborhood? If 2 people go out and monitor things or pick up trash, you need to come up and recruit a rotation schedule. So if you're out, it's not your month. It might be Joe Blow's or Jill's month to handle those issues. Those are things where you don't have to go to the city. Keep Mesquite Beautiful. They offer, grabbers, gloves. I've been out to drop off some things to let people know that, hey, you could come and request, through the Keep Mesquite Beautiful office and just create a rotation schedule. All of these things are important with a vitality program, Because if I'm going to advocate to get you incentives or anything that you need to coordinate resources, I need to know that you have a buy-in and that you have the attitude and the things that it takes to keep it stable and running. Because you can win, we can win, but it's like it's about attitude and setting the tone in your neighborhoods first. You don't go fix a problem without a plan, without a strategy. Because if you leave, so like when pilots, when they take off and they try to reach altitude, they don't close the door when they're at 18,000 feet. It's like they plan to close it. They talk about what you need to know before you reach the altitude. Well, that's how a vitality program is. I want you to check to see who lives in your neighborhood, what exists, what things work, what didn't, and let us know, and we assess it. And then we just try to get you the incentives and things that you need. But it's up to you to coordinate those efforts on the human side. This is the most critical level because there are similar and different value systems in neighborhoods. And the more and more, how can I say, neighborhoods are diversifying and they're having other populations move in, it's really a plus because people think and act differently from you. They might have some ideas that you've never thought of that you could share. The bumblebee that I had early on that slide, in Europe, there are scientists that studied the bumblebee and the colonization of bees. And they found that the more they diversify different types of bees, it keeps the level of vitality, it keeps them alive, or they would die off. Well, that's just like the human race. It's like if you're not around something different, it tends to become stagnated. So when you see neighborhoods that are, how can I say, they're isolated, or they feel, well, oh, if we could just keep it like this, you don't see that growth. You don't. I'm telling you, from 18 years, I never see it. But a group that allows different ideas, different outlooks, you always win. It just happens. Level 4, like taking joint decisions forward in partnership. What is the decision? There were 2 subdivisions that I worked with early in my career, and one was a neighborhood had been in existence for close to 30 years. Well, the adjacent land, it was being developed with a newly developing area. Well, the entrance was outdated, and the current funds that they were utilizing to maintain the entrances, it was obsolete. They just couldn't maintain it, and you could see by the appearance that it was deteriorating. So the developer approached the older existing neighborhood and say, could we demolish it, come up with a better entrance? Well, some of the older and, people who had been there for a while, they were upset. They were like, he's going to take away our identity, But what they began to do is they had meetings and they set up a plan. Like they offered to pay for the majority of the maintenance on that entrance. So they ended up 18 months later agreeing. The sign was demolished. It looks beautiful now. So they considered the impact and the cost. And so it beautified the entrance just by them agreeing with a neighboring community. A lot of neighborhoods, they believe that we live here, they live over there. But if you cross and begin to connect, like we just hosted the inaugural neighborhood summit, there were a lot of people, they went out to lunch together after this was over. I was like, that's awesome. It's like, why? Because they're sharing ideas. I might mention to you saying, well, we always had this problem. And you say something and you mention someone. And that's the connection. So we both could build on a resource that we thought was just isolated to one neighborhood. So what I did was with the engagement impact is in orange, that's a non-active neighborhood of over nearly 600 housetops right here in Mesquite. And in blue is the other neighborhood that's more active. They have a crime watch group. They stay involved. They meet quarterly. So notice the gap as far as success. If you notice, the crime rate in active in blue is a lot lower. You notice that? It makes an impact. The relationships. There were leaders or people I've worked with to create neighborhood groups. They were like, why would you want us to talk? We don't want to talk. We don't want to. And it's like, this really, really helps though. It's like if you and I, we could find something that we have in common, and then we start noticing things, and we say, let's put our heads together. That person that works at the grocery store and you see them all the time in your neighborhood, you might want to stop and say, hey, they might be able to donate you something where you could start a raffle and have monies to host things in your neighborhood. there was a business that was adjacent to a neighborhood in Sugar Land. And at that time, it's 98 and 7th Street. It was Old Town, and they hadn't started developing it yet because the sugar mill, where a lot of people worked at one time, it closed down. So that area just became stagnated. So what they decided to do is to say, well, you know what, the people who were still living there, the renters and the owners got together, and they proposed to the city, let's make the sugar mill a museum and somewhere fun where people could go. So they proposed this idea, and people thought, well, you know, that'll die, no big deal. It's a thriving area now. It became a museum, and people throughout Houston, they'll set up mobile type informational things. The Children's Museum, they visit the old sugar mill, and they have like remnants of how it was at that time. So it revitalized that area, and it was right in a budding neighborhood. So it's good to mention it, but come with a solution, not always the problem. So how do you get involved? As you know, we have a significant population of disabled, elderly, and youth. So with that, you have to have vision. Vision, I meaning like there's a homeless association in the city of Garland, and it's the Rainbow neighborhood, and they hosted, well, they actually did a presentation during Garland and Plano's summit. And they talked about how they noticed that they had a significant number of empty nesters or elderly people that lived there. So what they decided to do is form a committee of folks, and they purchased sympathy cards. So when somebody loses a loved one in their neighborhood, they knock on the door, they hand them a sympathy card, but in the sympathy card, it has telephone numbers, people you could call that are in the neighborhood. They'll say, we're going to the theater, but what really almost brought tears to my eyes is this. There's 3 elderly ladies that were in the audience. They stood up and they raised money, or they even used some of their own money. And every Thanksgiving, for everybody that's lost a spouse or a child, they don't have to cook for Thanksgiving. And some of the people who remember what they did for them, they actually work on that committee. So that was vision, and it was intentional. It's like nobody had to create that. So it's people that know that they really don't play, these ladies. It's like they had a resident. I mean, he was playing loud music. He was doing things. They're so visible in their neighborhood. It's like he had to join the party. It was like he took them seriously. And that's because they're always out and doing things. And trends, dog walking in the summer. That's how you could connect youth to seniors. I knew a gentleman, from back home in Fort Bend County. As soon as he would get out of school, he was looking for 4 or 5 dogs, to walk. A lot of people, their dogs get out during the day. They might work or have to go check on a loved one, and they just don't know what to do. But it's like there's a lot of youth that'll do that, and they like to post pictures or how they taught your dog a new trick or trained them. This is an engagement tool. And also they're out. I've had teenagers who do things in the neighborhood to call the police department. They'll say, I noticed this guy, it's like you would be amazed. But bad guys, they don't like coming in neighborhoods where you're out. They will shy away. They'll say, you know what, they're out a lot. I'm not going to do this. But if you create that, then you would come up with shared ideas about the 5 homes, the hoarders, for example. The trend is that why not tap into the church or a mental health profession to create an intervention? I worked with a lady, 21 plus years, she was transit in Louisville. No one talked with her. No one took out the time. They would say, well, we called it in, the trees are down. She owned a house, but the house was so cluttered inside. She never went inside. She would sleep in a tent in her backyard. So I visited with her, and I would say, what's going on? She mentioned a pastor that she trusted and she had built a relationship with. So I called him. So I got him and the neighborhood lead to set up. And within 10 and a half months, someone was able to clean out this lady's house. She has housing that's appropriate for her condition. But for 21 plus years, that's amazing. She lived in a community where everybody lived next door. But for some reason, nobody found out who does this lady connect with. And so that's all it took for her to get off the streets. And she's totally different. On the day of her court hearing, and the assistant city manager, she laughed. She got up to the mic and they said, is there anybody else, anything you have to ask? And she was saying, well, could Yolanda and Pastor Cotton make it? And the audience, they laughed because she remembered who connected her. I got out of the picture because I wanted the neighborhood to begin to realize that it took a phone number for the pastor to reach out to Adult Protective Services. Those are the types of numbers and resources you could provide on Nextdoor and social media. I mean, sometimes when you hear somebody griping about stuff, say, well, you know, I've heard about this. Just post it real quickly and be done. But we learn from others. And I think that neighborhood, they learned from this lady because they realized, hey, you know, she had an issue, but they felt bad. They said, we never asked a question. And she would mention this all the time. So as far as the next steps, register in your neighborhood group. I've had a lot of people to register. I have 5 new groups that I'm working with right now. If you are thinking about creating a new group, I would like for you to sign in the sign-in sheet. I'd like to meet with you one-on-one. There are tools that you need to consider. A lot of people get discouraged, you know, because they feel the recruitment isn't coming fast enough. So there are things that you could use and techniques to make sure that you remain consistent. And also recruiting neighbors are important. But submitting a block leader plan is what I'm going to go over, and the offering of the public education sessions. So a lot of people say, well, when you say leader, Yolanda, what do you mean? It's people in the room who actually head a crime watch group. If you're head of an HOA or a non-HOA, it's just a neighborhood group where you come together and you're working out ideas, you're sharing ideas with your neighbors, you're coordinating events. It's good to meet at least annually or biannually every year. But what do you do on a monthly basis to connect? Do you have coffee in your cul-de-sac? Do you say we're going to stand out, do something, make yourself visible? And then foster those relationships. If people do things for you, make sure that you don't contact them just the next following year when it's time to do it. Connect with them then. And there are opportunities for that through the Vitality program that I'll give you. Different games and stuff that you could play when you get together to learn more about each other. That's important. The block leader plan, and I have 7 that have completed this so far. I really need this from you. It's a tool to monitor your neighborhood activity. The success in a neighborhood is a science. It really is. And on that form, it has activities, and that means goals, like not just short-term goals, but long-term goals as well. And I would like to connect with you and find out to realize, hey, is this attainable, Yolanda, for this year? Or should we consider this 3 to 5 years out? You need to consider that when you're creating your plans. A lot of people, they don't write stuff down, and they just say, well, we just did this. We fixed this house. There's no quick fix to something that's a continuous problem. I've had people to call in, and they'll say the grass is high at the same addresses every year. And I'm like, well, you know it's going to get warm. By February or March, I would note those houses and begin to connect with people on Nextdoor and say, well, you know what? I think, you know, some of our neighbors need help. Find out what that is and create that resource. In Toledo, Ohio, they have a nonprofit that was birthed out of a neighborhood, and it's about 25, 30 young men deep under the age of 18. And in the summer, through donations that's donated through the entire community, they have fuel for lawnmowers. They trim low-lying limbs for people who are disabled and elderly. The city did not create this. The neighborhood group did. And your accomplishments, meaning your strategy. Like, what are you going to do? And if you need assistance with doing that, when you present it to me, I'll actually work with you to word it. But there's somebody available, whether it be like in the future, I'll be talking to council about, you know, grant programs and ideas. But sometimes there's a local business that's willing to help out. And also your key contacts, those are the people that will be involved with your plan. Not your entire neighborhood, but just those folks. So when you get involved, this is something from the Center for Disease Control. Now try not to laugh. With the NeighborWorks Institute, a lot of people that are in vitality programs and community outreach programs, we tend to use the same models and approaches. They challenge you and they say, well, you know what, I'm gonna give you something that's reactionary in a model. And I want you to figure out how you're gonna solve this in an engagement and a neighborhood perspective. So where am I going with this? Don't get worried. So with levels here, you have an individual level. People who tend to isolate themselves, they never connect with anybody. 9 times out of 10, I'm telling you from working in the criminal justice system previously before local government, it's probably something that they feel ashamed of or something they've gone through, like some type of depression or something, whether it be alcoholism. But in a community, in a neighborhood, there's somebody else that's a recovering addict or a single parent or going through a divorce. So they begin to be at another level, peer adaptive, where they build a relationship. And people feel that the factors that I've identified in the second column is the cause of certain, things that happen, but it's mainly because of their level of support systems. So some people, they don't have family that live in the same town. They don't have that child that lives right next door. They may be 2,000 to 3,000 miles away. So never make assumptions. When you do projects in your neighborhood, do you ever consider the person that always isolates themselves? 9 times out of 10. Raise your hand. Have you ever considered to approach somebody? Because of what? Because of fear, because of the unknown. I'm not saying to approach somebody that visibly you know that they might be dangerous, but I'm saying people who you just notice that after they lost their spouse or their behavior changes, and your group is doing something fun, you might be going out to eat and say, well, it's just us. But just that one time, that person might have a talent. There was a lady that I knew in Quail Valley, one of the oldest communities in Missouri City. She was an adamant gardener. She loved it. And she would invite people to her house or wherever she would donate pruning. And she would say, Yolanda, I just want to show them what I'm doing. And I have allergies. I would go out, sneeze, and enjoy Miss Helen, pruning her roses. But she did like free public education sessions. So on Miss Helen Street, you knew she lived there. Because if she had additional seedlings or whatever, she would share it. So you would see the remnants of her. She was a very nice person. So she was building really a community. It was like a way that could impact and create neighborhood opportunities without worrying about the environment, because some neighbors, they didn't keep up with their grass, but she did it in a fun way. She was like, do you want to, share my ideas and hobbies? But societal is the level that none of us want to address. So like if you know a hoarder, somebody who has a mental health condition, and the house has been in this condition for many years, there are professional agencies and nonprofits that can help, but how willing are you to address those issues? I could come up with an aesthetic and exterior program for you today. I could have developed one in Mesquite October. But like I go back to what I'm saying is that if you don't fix the internal, don't bother to quick fix the external. And so this is so important from what I'm hearing and seeing, in Mesquite. So what does this do as far as benefits? It builds relationships, it develops character, it reduces crime, and also it sustains neighborhoods. These are the many benefits that you would enjoy and you would begin to see. Now, I'm definitely, from my past experiences, I have vitality programs and proposals that I'll give to City Council. I always win. I have colleagues that are in Dallas County, and I did like this. They said, well, you know what? I know you're going to be quiet. You're not going to, take away from any of their resources. I'm like, no, I won't do that. But really I am, because I'm very passionate about residents. And I feel that if you gain a sense of where you live, it'll teach you to connect to other people. So you don't just live there and you exist. Well, our group in Southern Louisiana, we didn't just exist, we had a relationship, and it was so much better. It's like some of my neighbors, I treated them like they were my parents. And I would drive from Houston to Baton Rouge like if they were ill, because I sensed that connection with them. I had a lady, Miss Herron. She was very well known in the Jewish community in Baton Rouge, and she would pay for some of my books during undergraduate college, even though she didn't live to see me graduate, but she did a lot of stuff for me. She would invite me to the symphony, and I grew up in the city of Baton Rouge, and I'm like, oh, what do I wear? And she was like, oh, but she meant a lot to me. Just that little thing that she would do, it meant a lot. So don't think that just because somebody's different that you can't attribute to their growth. So these are some vitality workshops that we'll be doing exclusively for Crime Watch leads and neighborhood leads. This is training where we'll get more specific and detailed into Mesquite and actually coming up with a dynamic on problem solving. The training is necessary for you to complete the block leader plans that's necessary. The criteria that I've set up for leaders, they will be benchmarks that I will share with the city, like a year-end report every year, because everything not only will be measurable, but we need qualitative type things too. So these are the things that we'll go into specifically during these trainings. They're very important that if you are a lead or if you're part of a board of a neighborhood group, that you do sign up, because it'll attribute to your success level and wanting to stay consistently with that program. So if you wanted to register your neighborhood group, as well as sign up and let me know what some of your goals are. If you don't have a goal in mind, please visit with me. I've gone out with all the code officers. I've driven the area, and there's certain things that people say that's a goal, and I'll say, you know what, I'm gonna have to disagree with you. It's like I'll stretch you in certain areas, but I'll also guide you and help you into how you can meet that goal. So I hope I've been able to help you with some insight about what a Vitality program is. And mainly what we're doing right now is registering neighborhoods, and we're working on the block leader plans. I definitely need that so I could get familiar with your neighborhoods. So thank you. I'm gonna have Officer Rowan to come up.
All right, good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, I was asked to talk about two programs that Ms. Yolanda wants to get residents involved in that we have here in the city of Mesquite. So the two programs I want to talk about really quick are 24/7 program and the Take, Lock, and Hide program, right? I think some of my Crime Watch leaders are fairly familiar with those, and so we'll go over those. If you know all the details, I'm going to ask you to keep them to yourself so I can surprise everybody else in the room. 24/7, right? 24/7. We at the police department are ecstatic about the fact that Yolanda is doing the work that she is doing here in the city. It gives us an ability to work with her with the programs and get neighborhoods to come together. We have our communities, and I've heard it said before and time and again, we have our communities here in the city of Mesquite, but we always miss that key element of community, which is at the end, it says unity in it. Right, we have our neighborhoods are dysfunctional to a certain extent because we don't talk to one another anymore. We were at the neighborhood summit the last couple of weeks ago that Ms. Yolanda threw here at the city of Mesquite, and one of the speakers made this very poignant point about our homes. Right, we leave work and we disconnect just to get home, and we get home and our homes are really just our Wi-Fi points. Right, we go back to connect to the internet, to go back in our house to be isolated from society, where we're plugged in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We don't check on our neighbors. We don't understand that the elderly person over there might not be able to get out and mow the grass, right? We see the kids running up and down the sidewalks, and they may be unsupervised, and we're scared to go talk to them, right? Because we're fearful about what somebody else is going to say to them. Where I used to be a kid, when I grow up, and I was in trouble by 3 neighbors down the street, and I got talked to and I got stopped. And then 2 houses down from my house, I got talked to again before I actually got home and had to deal with my own parents. Right? That I knew something was coming down because the neighbors down there called them before I got there. And we've lost that communication factor. We've lost that ability to talk to one another. And we need to go back to that standard. And so part of these programs, like the 24/7 program that we're going to talk about, is a way for residents to get outside. What we are asking here at the city of Mesquite is that residents spend at least 20 minutes of their time, right, for 4 days a week out of a 7-day work period. I am asking that individuals come outside. The weather's about to be good, I hope. We're gonna cross our fingers about that rain. I keep looking at that forecast, right? But I want residents to come outside, and I want them to be active, and I want them to be engaged. I want you to meet your neighbor, right? That neighbor you haven't talked to in a couple of years and haven't seen. The new neighbor that might have moved in down the street, okay? We have to get past that myth about race, right? The last time I checked, whether you're black race, or you're white, or you're Hispanic, we're all human race. There's one. And we live in one neighborhood, and we need to be able to talk to each other to facilitate those dialogues about the things that we care about in our neighborhoods. If somebody can't cut their grass, well, maybe I can get my 18-year-old son or your 16-year-old niece or nephew to come down and say, hey, I'll pay you a couple of bucks if you go down there and help her out, right, and make that home beautiful again. Right? Or hey, maybe you can't get that fence fixed. Let me go ahead and call somebody from my side of town that can go ahead and mend that fence and protect that fence for you, because we want to revitalize those neighborhoods. And we can't do that when we're inside. right? We have to step outside of our boundaries. We have to step outside of our comfort zone just a little bit to get back to knowing one another, to talking to one another. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. It doesn't matter what religion you come from. When you woke up the morning, you were still next to the same neighbor that you were at when you moved in, right? And we have to go back to talking again. We have to go back to being careful about one another again. And part of this program, again, is to get folks outside. We're just asking for 20 minutes. Right, the more eyes that we have out on the street, right? If you see something, then you'll what? You'll say something, right? If you have to have that morning coffee, hey, go sit out on the porch and watch the cars go by, right? Because you might see that car that, hey, that doesn't look right. Hey, I don't think that guy lives in that neighborhood. And if you do see that, then now I want you to what? I want you to pick up the phone and call, right? And so we can respond to that. Okay, so we can probably get there, maybe identify that person. But that's part of that program, right? It's, again, getting the eyes out on the street, but more importantly, it's, again, starting that dialogue with people so we can talk to one another again, right? We should be able to have conversations. We should be able to agree to disagree without having to yell and point and stab at one another over little ticky-tack things, as opposed to being able, again, to come together and talk to one another about what's going on in our neighborhoods. And that's what 24/7 is trying to do. Right? It's a program that I hope Neighborhood Vitality can reach out to our crime watch groups and have individuals in our crime watch groups. And I hasten to use the word crime watch. Right? I really hasten to use that word crime watch, because what we're doing is we're asking individuals to come out in order to discuss just crime. Right? I want people to come out to discuss their neighborhood. Right? And so I'd rather be called Neighborhood Vitality or Neighborhood Watch as opposed to just a crime watch. Okay, and so when we have these neighborhood watches, we want folks to embrace that 24/7 principle when we get our weather a little bit better, right? And our grandkids, we want to take the grandkids out in the front yard, and we want to take the dogs out for the walk. And we want to make, if you got to smoke a cigarette, go ahead and smoke your cigarette in the back side of the alley, right? So maybe you can see a car coming out the street. We want to change those normal habits. And if we change those normal habits, we can go ahead and make sure that we can hopefully push that crime metric down just a little bit by having more eyes out. And that's 24/7. I always ask this question. I do a social experiment when I'm out, right? I ask people, what is car hop, right? What is a car hop? And usually this is what I get. Car hop is the individual that when you go to the Sonic, right? You go to the Sonic, you order your food, and a little young lady or a young man comes out and they bring you your food. That's the age-old question of a car hop, right? And so they usually look something like this. Right? That's what I know what a car hop is historically. But in 2017, 2018, the word car hop has changed. It's drifted just a little bit. It's transformed just a little bit, right? And so what I usually do when I'm at a crime watch meeting, I tell individuals, you don't have to do it now, but I tell individuals, take your phone out, pull your phone out, type in the word car hopping in your Google search or your Safari network, and see what pops up. And what they see when it pops up surprises them to a certain extent. They see this definition with a whole bunch of listings under it, right? And what this is, it says walk. This is crucial. Do not drive. 2 words. License plate. Down streets near houses. Approach cars parked on the side of the street and casually check to see if one of those doors is what? Unlocked. I have teenagers from across the country who are plugged in. Remember, we go home and we plug in, right? Who constantly have devices in their hands 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can go online and they can get a definition about car hopping. And then there's a detailed list that tells them how to actually car hop. But in actuality, what this has done is to destigmatize the word car hopping, and we've changed it from car hopping to burglary of a motor vehicle, right? Burglary of a motor vehicle. That's what they're doing. But it doesn't register to them, right? Because they haven't realized that, it is a crime to check somebody's door, even if it is unlocked. Right? And so what we're trying to do here, we preach that message. Take, right? Lock and hide. Lock, take, and hide. However you want to transverse the words. All right? We are asking that individuals take that time, that extra time, to lock their cars. When I look at the statistics here in the city of Mesquite, and we just look at the majority of burglary of a motor vehicle, and I check the modus operandi, the MO, how are people getting in these cars? And the first thing that I see is that the car was left. That doesn't necessarily mean that every burglary of a motor vehicle is an unlocked car. What I'm saying is the larger proportion of those cars are just simply unlocked vehicles. They're simply unlocked vehicles. And so what we're asking residents to talk to individuals about is say, hey, check your car door. I know we get caught up in our everyday life. We get home, we got to get the kids fed, we got to walk the dog, we got to get dinner on, we got to put the clothes in the washer and dryer, and we forget to what? We just forget to lock the door, right? I'm not sitting here trying to accuse anybody. I'm not sitting here trying to point my fingers at anybody, but I want people to understand that, you know what, we need to take just a step back for just a second and slow down, right? Slow down when you get home and actually talk to the neighbor that you see on the street and wave at them and say, hey, how you doing? And when you say, hey, how you doing, actually mean it, right? Hey, are you okay? I'm okay today. All right, it's good to see you, right? And when you get into your driveway, you take your belongings out, and I just want you to do a quick check. Did you lock your car? Did you take your purse out? Right? If your gym bag is in there, can you move your gym bag from inside the car to the trunk? And maybe if that's the case, maybe I won't have that burglary. I'm not saying it's going to always happen. I'm not going to say I'm going to solve 100% of burglaries, but for the few percentages that I get, and that overwhelming percentage says that the cars were unlocked, maybe I can reduce that crime rate by that much. If I can get that message out to folks. We have a tendency in crime prevention. And we talk a lot about what we call broken windows theory of crime. I'm a big academic, all right? And we use the broken windows theory of crime, and it's a good theory of crime to use, but not all facets remain true all the time, right? We have to take pieces of different theories, and we have to combine them together in order to cultivate plans for our citizens to go or abide by, which will help us reduce that crime rate, right? Which will help us grow our neighborhood vitality. One of those theories is this routine activities theory of crime. And if you look at it, what it says is I have to have a likely offender, right? I have to have a suitable target, and then I have to have the absence of a capable guardian. When I have those three things in one vicinity and they come together, they converge together, it's a probability that I'll probably have a crime. Part of my job is this. Part of my job is to look at those people who may be suitable targets, right? And have that conversation that I had with you, right? Hey, if we remember to lock our car, maybe we might not be a victim of a burglary of a motor vehicle. And if I remove them from being a suitable target from this triangle, I take one aspect of that triangle away, it's a high probability that I won't have a crime. Right? Part of my job is this. Part of my job is to talk to the individuals and say the absence of a capable guardian, right? People confuse capable guardians with just police officers. People who are capable guardians are those individuals who care about their communities, who are going ahead and establishing neighborhood crime watches, the individuals that sit in this room, the individuals that go out to our crime watch meetings, right? If I can get my capable guardians to enlist in that 24/7 program, and they now are outside, and I have more eyes on the street, now I do have a guardian, because if they see something, they're going to what? Say something. And I've removed that prong of that triangle away. And if I remove that prong of that triangle away, will I have a crime? No, right? I'm hoping it'll go down. Part of my job is to go out and talk to youth, right? And if I go out and talk to youth and say, hey, I know what you guys are doing. I've seen it on the internet. I've seen you car hopping, right? I know, and you know that it's a burglary of a motor vehicle, and if you get caught up in that, you get arrested, and if you get arrested, you may not be able to get financial aid to go to school. You may not be able to get that job, right, that you wanted, because you have to check that box. If I can stop them from being a likely offender, and I remove that from the prong, will I have a crime? No, right? Those are the things that we try to attack. Those are the things that we try to go into when we develop these programs here in the city of Mesquite. But these two programs that we've talked about today are two of those programs that I hope when Neighborhood Vitality comes around and they get to talking to you, everybody that's going to sign up today, right? My Crime Watch leaders. Can I get some head nods? Yes? Okay. Right, in the back, if I can get you guys to sign up and get with Miss Yolanda and get trained, we can get this message out to more and more people, because information is power. Information is power, okay? In order to change something, you got to face it, right? But nothing can be changed unless you face it, all right? We want you guys to be equipped with the information to get in your neighborhoods, to strengthen those neighborhoods. And those are the programs that we're working here in the city of Mesquite. If you guys have any questions, we will be in the back to talk to you about the programs.
Thank you, Tori, and thank you, Yolanda. We'll move into something real quick, but I do want to point out comment cards. If you're afraid to engage with us tonight or you need to leave, feel free to use the comment card. I would also ask a favor. If you wouldn't mind stopping by and taking a comment card and leaving a suggestion for a Town Hall Tuesday meeting. If there is a topic that you're interested in, you would think that would be really good, if you've talked to your neighbors and there's something about the city that they would that you would feel like we could make into a Town Hall Tuesday, let us know. We would always appreciate your feedback. But as I said earlier, Yolanda is not your primary contact with the city. But we do have numerous ways in which you can communicate issues in your neighborhood, whether it's from potholes to a code problem, to just a something that you want us to take a look at. There are a lot of ways. There is a form in the back, and it's at the second table back here. It's our Stay Informed and Stay Connected. I would hope most people in this room have picked one of these up at an event we've been at. But if you don't have one, please pick one up tonight. This lists everything and every way that you can get in contact with us. But to just kind of go over a few others, on our website we have a button right in the middle of our homepage. It is our Mesquite Messenger. This is a service that you can sign up for, pick which topics you're interested in, and basically we will email you information. If it's a police issue that's going on, we will use that to get in touch with you. If it is a code issue, there are just general what's going on in Mesquite, events in parks and recreation, when the next city council meeting is, when the next town hall Tuesday is. Those are the types of things we push out to our residents. There's also, if you don't want us reaching out to you, if you just want to reach out to us and report something, we have the Contact Us on our webpage. You can fill out the form. We do require a name and an email address. Just a lot of times you think you're being clear, you're actually telling us what your concern is, and we have no clue. A lot of people will say, there's a pothole on my street, please come fix it. And there's a lot of streets in Mesquite, so we have to hunt and peck for those. But again, that's why we require that information, just so we can ask you a few more questions about an issue. But this is the direct way. There are categories that in this area that if it's a street, it'll go directly to our streets manager. If it's an unknown, it goes to the city manager's office, and we assign it. And if you do report something on this, you should get a response back either by email or by a phone call from a city staff member. The last thing is our mobile app. It is a good way to, if you are on smartphone technology, to find out information at any time. We do get a lot of questions in the city about certain things, and we do our best to put those types of answers on our website and on our mobile app. But this is a handy way if you're out and about and you see something while you're hopefully out doing your 20 minutes and you want to report, but you don't want to go back into a computer, you can go through our mobile app, and all of that contact information that I told you about previously on our website is on the mobile app. So again, numerous ways. And one of the challenges that I've been given by the City Council this year, and it's a challenge that's given to us on a yearly basis, is customer service. And we are striving to provide the best engagement with our citizens possible. But the only way I can truly measure this is if you are sending things through these types of systems. While I don't want to discourage you from reaching out to your council member and communicating with them about the things that you're seeing in the community, passing along a code issue, a pothole, or just a speeder on your street to your city council member is fine, but we would really prefer that you give us the opportunity to reach out to us first. If you don't get a response or you do not see any measurable results, absolutely go to your council member and let them know that we are not meeting your expectation. But by going through these methods that I've pointed out, I am able to review and measure and see what we're responding, how quickly we're responding, and who we're responding to. We can pull that data, and we are trying to become a more data-driven organization. We find out that in a certain neighborhood, we're getting a lot of pothole complaints. We can mobilize our street department much more effectively to go out and repair 4 potholes in one neighborhood if we know about them, than spreading us out over the entire city. So it's those types of things that will make us better at our jobs and make us respond faster. One of the challenges and goals that we've put into place now is trying to respond to our code enforcement issues faster. So when you call in or report something online, we are trying to make sure that from the time that call has come in until it is resolved is less than 30 days. Hopefully it's 10 days because your neighbor is taking care of it. But for our actions, we would like our actions to be 30 days. And the only way we can measure that if it's going into the system. If you report it to a city council member or you wait till a town hall to come to us, it adds days to the response. These electronic means are the quickest way to get our attention and get us on issues. So with that, I do want to point out a couple of other dates. You'll notice our Town Hall Tuesday schedule is a little light this spring. It's because we have a lot of citizen engagement opportunities coming up. And they're not quite Town Hall Tuesdays, but we do need citizen feedback. And just to point out some of those, on March 19th at the City Council meeting, we will have a public hearing on transportation, and particularly public transportation, our Compass service, our demand response service, and what citizens would like to see there. We will also have another public meeting for those that can't make the City Council meeting on March 29th. On March 20th, TxDOT is holding a public meeting on State Highway 190. This is vital input for the state to finalize the plan and build Highway 190 connecting to Mesquite. That would be March 20th. And then one other issue, and I know this is a hot topic in the community, and we are trying to get as much engagement as quickly as possible so we can address it, is tethering of animals. We want to make sure that as we address this with an ordinance, that we are hearing from citizens and getting that vital input before we put an ordinance in place that will truly affect a lot of owners of dogs and dog lovers in the community. So that is March 22nd, and that will be in this room, I believe. Don't hold me to that, but our goal is to have it in here so we can have the use of the Facebook Live and the video capture. So with that, I'm happy to address any questions that you might have about neighborhood vitality. We can get Officer Roan and Yolanda back up here if anybody has any questions about vitality. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering.
Oh, we're going to try the microphone.
Okay, great. I was wondering if Home, the program Home,
Helping others in Mesquite every day.
Is now under Yolanda.
Yes. We've asked Yolanda to take over addressing Mesquite Day and Home because we feel that those are vital links to neighbors.
Okay, good. Because I need to try to understand a little bit more about Home.
Okay.
I understand addressing Mesquite. And then also, the signs Take, Lock, and Hide. I saw like a picture of a sign. Does the city have signs like we could put out in neighborhoods?
Not yet.
Okay.
We are trying to do the residential engagement on an individual basis and try not to put up too many signs. We worry about visual clutter in neighborhoods. But if a neighborhood group or a crime watch group is interested in doing something, that is, again, something Yolanda will try to facilitate those types of needs.
Okay, I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I would just like to say I would love to see more people my age here engaging with these topics. And I know that it's been a big thing lately that a lot of millennials are moving into Mesquite, which is great. I'm a millennial, my wife as well. But part of the issue with that is that we are certainly checking social media to see what's being said about the community, and that relates to vitality. It creates a certain opinion in people's minds. And that's not always the most positive right now. And I would just like to encourage y'all to maybe think twice before you say something unnecessarily negative. Maybe go to the city first, just because people are looking at that. And I know that if we had seen what I see now before we moved in, we would not have moved in. And I would have really regretted that, because I love where we live and I hope we're there a long time. So if I could just pass that along as a little bit of an encouragement as people like me are looking to move in here someday.
Thank you. I'm just going to add on to that point that just posting a pothole picture or a crack in the street on social media does not help solve the problem. So make sure you're giving us as much information about where those issues are, and then giving us an opportunity to fix them. But thank you for your point there. Anybody else have any questions? I know we're running a little bit long tonight, so again, on behalf of Yolanda and Officer Roan, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. We are going to ask the council to come forward, and I guess we'll start with Mr. Alleman.
I want to take this opportunity, I know we're a little late, but just to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank our city manager for his leadership. I think he's doing a fantastic job, and I'm really excited about that. And also, and while we're doing that, also to thank the two that came up here and gave a great presentation, both Yolanda Wilson and also Officer Roan, because, and I'm going to tell you, before you clap, I'm going to tell you why. Before you clap, because we're living in a time right now where there's a lot of negative tension in our society, all around us, and I'm sure you feel it. And a lot of folks out there, it's almost hard to find smiles anymore. And when I came in tonight, I just, I went over to greet Yolanda and Officer Roan, and you could just sense the joy with Yolanda and her work, and that she loves it. And that's the way we ought to be about our city. I believe that so much, because there's so many great things that are happening right now. It doesn't take any effort to be negative. Anybody can be negative. But it takes special effort to be positive. And there are a lot of great things that are happening in our city right now. A lot of great things, economic development, construction of new homes coming up, a lot of great things. But now when we hear these folks coming in, and they're coming from the outside in, especially Yolanda Wilson that's just recently joined in the effort, we need to get ready and I'm ready to preach right now the way I've been listening to these two. I really am, because they've inspired my heart so much. But there are biblical principles involved here that we need to understand, like loving your neighbor, taking care of your neighbor, but also to be not just hearers, in Scripture you see hearers of the word and doers of the word. Same thing here. Hearers of what you're listening to tonight, and then go do. Because there's a lot of creativity that can move forward. I want to challenge you, all of us here, every one of us can make a difference. And there's the power of one, which she was talking about. Yolanda Wilson was talking about the individual, relationship, community, and society. And that's it. And it's the concentric circles that bridge out, and it starts with you, grassroots, right in your neighborhood, and the difference that you can make. I love it. I love it. And all of us can do that. So I'm going to stop, okay, because I could keep going right here, right now. But they've got me very excited. And we need to be positive, and you are the ones to be challenged in this, because you're here. And it's really like preaching to the choir with you guys. And I know all of y'all are going to go back there and get that sheet and sign up and everything. She makes me want to do it for my neighborhood. And I think I'm going to do it tonight too. And so anyway, that's so much. I'm going to stop right here. I got to stop. But just to say, I love this city. I believe in this city, and we need to work hard for this city. And there's enough negative people out there. Let's be positive, and let's start having some smiles around our city again. And I love these people because they say, I have fun with what I do. When was the last time you did something that was fun? And it's fun for that. It's fun for Yolanda. She's passionate. Let's be fun about doing something positive for our city. All right? I'm going to stop.
Well, I'll be much briefer. I'm very encouraged with all the people that are coming out to these Town Hall Tuesdays. The meeting that we had a few Saturdays ago that Miss Yolanda put together, with all the people that showed up to that. But while she was talking a while ago, I set a goal. She said, when you drive through our city and you see a neighborhood, you know it's Mesquite. My goal would be, I drive through a neighborhood, I know it's in Mesquite, and I want to live there. That would be a great goal. That when somebody drives through our city, they say, you know what, I want to live in that city because it's a great city. If we have all decided that we know what a great city this is, we want other people coming to our city. So just make that your goal. Thank you.
Well, I am very, very, very excited. This is an issue that's been very dear to my heart for a long time. I've spent a lot of my council career in the last 4 years working to rebuild and re-strengthen several of our older neighborhoods, specifically 4 in my district. In fact, I'm restarting what I call a neighborhood improvement surge in Edgemont Park, one of several very large, wonderful neighborhoods that 50 years ago was thriving and lots of great things happening. And now, like many of our other old neighborhoods, there's parts of it that's been forgotten. And what we do with these neighborhood improvement surges, we go in and we certainly try to spruce up and clean up and address code issues and do the things we can physically do. But those things don't last if there's not good people left to keep it going. And one of the things I learned in some of the previous neighborhoods that I spent numerous months working in, we knocked lots of doors and we left a crime watch leader or a neighborhood leader in place for each neighborhood. But one of the things I learned that I didn't do enough was we didn't leave support groups in place. And to lead a neighborhood, oftentimes by yourself, that's hard work. And we've got some people in this room. I look at Elsie Williams and Vanston and Audrey Carter and Rolandwood Hills and other folks who are oftentimes doing the work on their own. And so one of my goals as we move forward with neighborhood vitality is we got to engage people in neighborhoods. And I'll tell you, I was knocking doors Saturday over in Edgemont Park trying to, handing out the forms that you saw a while ago that have all the department numbers information. And sure, you hit some doors of folks who won't come to their doors. You hit a few doors of people that get you like, what in the world are you doing at my door? But I'll tell you, there's an entire population in this town that's completely disconnected, but they're open to being connected. And there are people, if you do, of every race, every economic background, and every age, younger or older, that if you show them some love and some kindness and involve them and talk to them about how are things going, many do have an opinion. And when you start empowering them and showing them that they can make a difference, my gosh, the things that can happen in Mesquite, Texas. So for those of you who've been doing this for a while, please knock some more doors, talk to more folks, build more support groups, because at the end of the day, government cannot and should not do everything. We don't have enough resources. But we know this. We all like economic development. We like nice parks, etc. But if we don't have clean, safe neighborhoods to live in and for our kids to grow up in, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. So I'm proud of what's being done here, proud of what our staff's doing. But again, it's got to be all of you getting out and engaging and showing folks that they can make a difference in their neighborhoods. So I'm excited. Let's keep working hard. Mesquite's coming back. Thank you.
Good evening. Second neighborhood meeting tonight. So there was a neighborhood meeting up at the North End, Millie Arnold's neighborhood group up there. And just fantastic things, but I got to hear Lock, Take, and Hide twice. It was awesome. Officer Roan and Officer Contreras almost have it down to the T together. So it's fantastic. But no, thank you for each of you to come out tonight. It is really exciting to see so many people here tonight and to see so many people that repeatedly come back to the Town Hall Tuesdays, and it's different folks too. So that's a great thing. And there's a lot of people in this room that have helped build this city over the years. And I look forward to continuing to build a great city with you. And my colleagues on the council, we've got a fantastic team right now. We have our moments when we disagree, but we're all working together to make the community better, and our hearts are all in the right place. So I look forward to continuing to work with them to bring more great things to the city of Mesquite. So thanks for being here.
And just a reminder, my staff will be here as long as you need us to be here to talk to you or answer any questions. Again, thanks for taking your time tonight. If you do have suggestions for future Town Hall Tuesdays, don't forget the comment cards. If you don't have time to talk to us, use those as well. And give us your email or phone number, and we'll get in touch with you. Again, thanks everyone for being here.